My handwriting is going to be really, really bad because I'm really bad at writing. Are you able to see this this pad?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, so let me start by asking a very basic question. So, from your previous knowledge, okay, what do you understand by ecology? When I say what do you understand by ecology, I know there's of course a textbook definition of studying interactions between organisms and environment. Okay, beyond that. It would be ideal if it would be best if you just unmute and answer, because
Plants and
I
animals.
can't see the text when I'm sharing a screen. It's difficult for me to see the text.
Plants and animals come to mind.
Plants and animals come to mind. What about plants and animals come to mind?
I mean, why they move, why they eat, how does eating, interactions basically.
Okay. Why they move? Is it what you said?
Yeah.
And then what else did you say?
I can't remember.
You can't remember. Okay.
Biodiversity is also something that comes to mind, and how the dynamics of population works.
When you say biodiversity comes to your mind, what about biodiversity comes to your mind?
Like how different ecosystem have accommodated different species of plants and animals over over period of many years.
Okay.
The evolution of animals based on where they live and how they interact with their surroundings.
When you say evolution of animals, what do you mean? Evolution of what of animals?
The evolutionary history and how they evolve based upon the kind of selection pressures they face in their environment.
It could also be plants, right? Not just
Right.
any animals. Okay. Okay, fine. What else?
How human behavior, is responsible for creating this balance in various ecosystems, and how we can remedy that.
Human behavior and how it is responsible for
creating ecological imbalances.
about ecosystem, sorry, ecosystem imbalances. Okay, fine. What else comes to your mind?
Resource utilization and species extinction.
Okay, source. Is my handwriting okay now? I'm trying really hard, I think I'm hoping that by the end of the semester it will be slightly more readable. You're able to read at least, right?
Yes, sir.
And species extinction. Okay, what else?
The functions organisms play.
Functions organisms play. What do you mean by that?
So things like herbivory, predation,
okay.
carbon sequestration.
Okay. So yeah, so it's a good list. Like herbivory.
Interdependency.
Okay. Yeah. So you have said more interdependence of what? Sorry.
Interdependence of organisms in the ecosystem. Interdependence in the ecosystem.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Okay. Yeah, this is a good list. So now, because this is a course on mathematical and theoretical ecology, which of the questions do you think can mathematics theory play a role?
Population dynamics.
Okay. For somebody who knows, this is a very obvious question. Obvious Answer, okay, fine.
Resource utilization.
Resource utilization and species extinction, okay.
Evolution of organisms.
Evolution, okay.
Biodiversity.
All?
But the biodiversity is a vague thing. What about biodiversity? It depends. Okay. Yeah, maybe.
We can talk about in terms of
Nothing.
evolutionary aspect of diversity. So, I guess.
Okay. Why did so many organisms evolve? Is that what you mean? Why does biodiversity exist? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
The implications of biodiversity.
Okay.
I think all.
All of them. Okay. All of them. So all of them, right? Any question you ask can be understood in some form from mathematics. So what do? But let's ask a slightly more specific question now. What do you mean by the fact that we understand by mathematics? What does it mean? Okay, now we have many of you said now you can understand all this by mathematics, but what does it mean?
Trying to approximate their behavior in terms of some equations. Whatever you want to, it's an abstraction of what they're doing.
What does it okay, so you do some abstraction in mathematical terms, in some math form, right? Okay.
Being able to predict whatever behavior that we're studying.
To
accurately.
predict the behavior you are studying. Okay. Do you want to refine that statement a bit? So you predict the future, right?
Essentially, yes. So if we are talking about evolution, then if we understand how evolution happened, we should be able to predict how things will evolve from here on out till the next 100 years or so.
But before prediction, you can still do one more thing. What is that?
To understand the patterns.
To explain, right? Explain or understand patterns. Okay. What else does it mean to study mathematically? Because I'm assuming there are people I'm assuming that some of you who are answering do know some of these things, but I am also assuming that there are many people in this class who have never come across mathematical understanding or mathematics being applied in ecology. So think of from their point of view, it might seem a very awkward thing. Why does mathematics at all have any role in a tree I see, an animal I see around me? It's not very evident, right? For somebody, imagine explaining to somebody even on a street, they would be, puzzled. What does mathematics have to do with the trees, forests, and lakes?
I think
what monkey is doing.
I think maths makes it easier to understand complex biology because it only it allows you to sort of use variables instead of complex biological phenomena, and variables are easier to understand and manage. So we can actually get a lot of understanding about the patterns which might not be evident through direct observation, but when you sort of boil them down into easier to see variables, then it's more evident.
Okay, fine. Sorry for my mathematics background, by the way. Not very. Whoever answered this question. Yeah, because not everybody might think that explaining mathematically is the easiest thing, right? Okay. So so of course the purpose of this course is to sort of try to see how we can use mathematics in interesting and also useful ways to understand biology, and in particular ecology course. Okay? So with one example, somebody, as I have given you indication in the syllabus, so the first topic we're going to study will be that of what happens to species dynamics. Okay, so what do we mean by that? Okay, so let's say one question that people historically were interested is, how are human populations changing over time? Okay, so today we have a population of 6 point whatever billion, right? One can ask a question, what will it be after 10 years? Okay, and this was a question that people were interested more than 200 to 50 years ago, not just today. Okay, and now you can ask the same question in a biological context, right? Now there are so many tigers in all of India, 1,500 to 2,000 based on various estimates. What do you think it will be over the next some number of years? And one can ask this question to any species that somebody is interested in, right? So, and in fact, this question of how population numbers change over time, although right today it's considered one of a very fundamental question, a very basic question. The origin of this question was actually from a very applied perspective. Economists wanted to know how populations change. Therefore, how do I get so much? If the populations will keep on increasing, do we have enough resources for so many people? And that same question that you ask in the human context is very much applicable in the context of animals. This change over time is now an extremely important question that ecologists try to understand. It has obvious applied and conservation implications. So now, how do we try to address this problem? So, in the first 1 month course, this is the question we are going to look at. At the end of 1 month, unfortunately, you will still not have enough tools to actually model a real population, a wild population, because the wild populations are really complex. But what the purpose of this question and the rest of the discussions we're going to have over the next 1 month will be, how do we begin to think about this question? What are the simple ways to think about the question? And what are the simple mathematical ways to think about this question? And what do we learn from that exercise? So that's going to be the goal in the next 1 month. So now, to understand how populations change over time, what do we need to know?
The birth rate and the death rate of the particular species of animal, along with the various factors that can lead to them.
May I know your name, please? Can you tell me just your
Rishabh
name?
Raj Mishra.
Are you an UG student in IISc?
Yeah.
Okay. What background?
Bio.
Bio. Okay, excellent. So, okay, so that's a so you want to know birth and death. So now, if you ask this question, there are always two ways to answer these kind of questions. One is you can ask a analogous question which is of huge relevance today, which is, how are COVID infections going to change over time, right? So here the population, I could be an elephant population, seal population, or a bacterial population in a pure ecological context. But in the human context, it could be how the number of infected people change over time, right? The population has changed, but the question basically remains same, right? So there are basically two ways to understand this question. One is, hey, look, let us just plot based on the available data. Okay, let's say N is the population. Okay, so this is today. It's called the T0. I have some data. Okay. And then the question is, what happens next? Will it go this way? Will it go this way? Will it be stationary? We don't know, right? So we want to make some projections to the future. There are two ways to do this. And the first one is entirely statistical. So what does it mean? One can do the following. Maybe I'll use a different color pen now. What I can do is I can use I can learn the pattern of what was happening in this period. Okay, so for in this window between wherever the initial data to today was available, what I can do is fit a equation, fit an equation or set of equations. Okay, and then obtain all the parameters of the equation. So now what will, if this exercise will tell me how n will depend on t. There will be some function. There will be some function that will depend on some some parameters a, b. It will also depend on the variable t. So I have found the function f. So when I say fit an equation, the equation basically is this now. So I have found some form of function a, estimated values of a and b. I have found whether the function is a quadratic function, maybe a cubic function. Okay, and I have made this and obtain the estimates of this. I also have some errors associated with all these, all these parameter values. And once I know this, now I know this from, how did I obtain this? This I obtained from whatever time 0 to t0. So I had the data, and based on that, I have obtained this fit. Okay, so this t2 and t0 looks very similar, but they're different. Now what I do is, now that I know this, what I do now assume the same equation holds true even beyond, and then make a projection. And the projection might tell this might happen. Okay, this is a statistical approach to making predictions about how populations change over time. And the statistical approach also comes in a variety of flavors. I'm not generalizing it in one way. Typically ignores the processes. Okay, so what do I mean by processes? Rishabh was the one who spoke, right?
Yes,
so
sir.
Rishabh mentioned things like birth, death, right? Okay, there are more processes like birth and death that change population size. One can identify all the factors that influence population size, and then try to make a first principle derivation. We call them either a first principle derivation. Sometimes it's very hard, first principle derivation. Oh, I missed some. First principle, of how birth and death will cause changes in the population. That's the way that mechanistic models usually do. And to build mechanistic models, you need mathematics. Okay. Even in this, there are two ways to do. One is called a first principle derivation. The second one is called a phenomenological. Okay. Phenomenological. Okay. Now, these two may not make much sense to you if you haven't studied, and that's totally fine. And eventually I will try to sort of explain what these two mean. To a large extent, in this course, we're going to do the second part, phenomenological. Okay. Okay. We will use some basic ideas, but we won't do a very detailed first principle derivations, because these happen to be mathematically a lot more complex. So I teach a course in the August semester once in 2 or 3 years. There I try to cover some of these kind of ideas, but to a large part we are going to do something called phenomenological equation. Okay, so that's the fundamental difference between a statistical model and mechanistic model. Okay, so for those who if any of you were sufficiently curious enough to know an example which again could be related to COVID, is that there was a prediction from I think government of India, one of the, I think maybe it even involved somebody from Niti Aayog. Sometime last year around late April or May, they said that by May 15th, the COVID cases will vanish. In fact, they made a projection that looked like this. This was the data, and they sort of made a projection that by May 16th or so, the cases will become zero. Okay, but this is something no mechanistic model was predicting. So this is something they predicted primarily because they were fitting an equation of this type. And then, of course, they never told how they were actually fitting. This is what we are speculating how they may have done. What those kind of fitting will do is, it will actually pick up. It was an increasing curve in the. Okay, sorry, I messed up here. There was an increasing curve, and it was slightly bending for a short while. It sort of overfit the bending. I'd say the bending will continue to hit zero within a month. Of course, that didn't happen. We all know it didn't happen. It still hasn't happened, right? So that's true. But whereas all of the mechanistic or mathematical based models derived from mechanistic principles, none of them made this prediction of such a drastic change by May 16th. Okay, so that's why building mechanistic models are often powerful. This doesn't mean statistical models are less important. They have their own role when done correctly. Okay, so let's see now how can we go about building a simple mechanistic model of populations. Okay, to understand that, we need to know the processes that affect. Do you prefer the red pen or some other color pen? It makes no difference. I'll maybe use something different now. Okay, so how do populations change over time? So as somebody rightly said, what are the processes that change, that influence birth, death? So because birth will increase the numbers, death will reduce the numbers, what other processes will change?
Availability of resources can also be one factor.
Don't you think that the resources will just influence the birth rate?
Yes.
Migration.
Okay. Migration.
Noting population.
Just 1 second. Let me write. Migration is one. Somebody also said immigration, emigration. Maybe we can just combine both of them into migration, or maybe we can split this into two. Okay. Immigration. For those of you who have never heard of, you would have heard of immigration, emigration, but it's often easy to confuse which is inward, which is outward. So I connect this with this I here. So immigration is the inward, migrating inwards. Emigration is the more like death, okay, which is migrating outwards. Okay, yeah. Somebody was saying another factor.
Ability to cooperate and compete with the other species in the habitat.
Okay. Okay. Competitive abilities. Somebody also said resources. I'll just write that, okay?
Can we consider fertility rate as a separate factor, or does it?
What do you think?
I think it should be separate.
Fertility of what? Of
fertility rate of the populations.
Okay. So, but won't that be covered under birth as a birth rate?
Not necessarily. There are a certain factor of
what does fertility level lead to in the end? What's the outcome of it?
The chance of survival of how much of a progeny survive out of, say, 100 are born, how many survive beyond some particular age will influence how the population grows over time.
But that's survival, that's not
fertility.
Do you mean fecundity by any chance? Okay. Yeah, okay, fine, I can write that. But some people are arguing that it can be incorporated into either birth or death.
Capacity of the environment.
Capacity of the environment. How is it different from resources?
Fair enough, it's the same.
Ecological flexibility.
What is the ecological flexibility?
Ability to adapt, ability of an organism to adapt to the changes in the ecology.
Okay.
Won't that
Either,
come competitive abilities? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
for
or I'm just
example,
saying,
it can also include behavioral flexibility also. As in ecological flexibility also includes behavioral flexibility, which is,
but somebody was saying, isn't that same as competitive ability
Yes.
in the end?
What about climatic variability?
Random processes like stochastic processes that might occur.
So basically the unknown factors, is that what you mean?
Yeah, like some freak accidents or something like that.
Basically unknown stochastic factors.
Also, we might need population at one particular time. So based on that, it might evolve to different ways.
Say that again, sorry.
We might need population actual value at one point of time.
So the age structure of the population.
Okay, age structure.
Diseases.
Would we consider alien species separately, or would that be a part of competitive abilities?
Alien species. Did you
Yes.
say alien species? What are alien species?
So, like alien in the sense that they come from different habitats and have competitive superiority over the already existing species.
Okay. Okay.
Do you mean invasives?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Number of females in the population.
Okay, number of females. Okay.
Diseases.
Okay, diseases. Excellent.
Stability of the ecosystem.
What does it mean?
Like if the ecosystem is stable, if the ecosystem is more stable, the chances are that the birth rate will remain the same. If there is some instability introduced, the population growth might vary. Like in case disease comes in, that reduces the stability of the ecosystem, hence decreasing the population and factors like that.
Okay. Okay. So all these are fine. Okay. Now let me now make a case for simplicity. Okay. Ecosystem stability. How does it actually affect what is the process by which this affects population size?
It's via the birth and the death rate, or like if the organisms don't find the location,
Yeah, basically, you're right. Basically,
migration.
ecosystem stability either influences birth or death, right? It might, if it is less stable, there will be more deaths. If it is more stable, less deaths and maybe more births, right? Is that what you mean? So basically, so let us try to eliminate things that can be, absorbed into something else. Can this go? Can this go?
In my opinion, yeah.
Yes, sir, it can.
Okay. So whoever proposed should tell me this. What about diseases? Can this go into something else we have already written until now?
Death, probably.
It causes more deaths, no? This can go, okay. What about the number of females?
It can go to the birth rate.
How?
Like females are responsible for multiplication of population in animals that reproduce sexually. So it can
females
go to
are the
birth
ones that give rise to birth, no?
Yeah.
Yes.
So how can it go away?
Because birth rate kind of includes the factor of the number of females present there.
Do you understand the difference between the number of births and the birth rate?
All right.
So number of births will depend on the birth rate times the number of females. So can this be absorbed into any of the stuff above? I don't
think
maybe
migration.
But sir, then number of females is not exclusive, right? If there are too many females and very few males, then that doesn't mean that there will be high birth numbers or high birth rates either.
Sure. So that means, I don't know, I'm trying to just say that, can I eliminate this? If you want to add more, you add more. But can I eliminate this? I'm trying to ask. I'm right now not convinced I can eliminate this. I don't know where to put this.
I mean, aren't they linked? Like, aren't the number of births and birth rate linked in a way?
So number of births will be birth rate times the number of females. Do you all agree with this?
Yeah.
So that means to know the population change, you need to know the number of births. So you need to know the number of females, right? See, the birth rate can accommodate how many males are there. But the number of females are necessary to know how many births will happen. No?
If you're assuming that all females, whatever, give birth at the same, not same rate, I'd say they don't have any other issues. It's like a perfect model. Then
right now we're not assuming anything. Right now we're not assuming anything.
Then you
kind of fertile.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you have a section of females that are less fertile or more fertile.
That comes to the age structure. So do we need to know the age structure?
Yeah.
Meaning, some section are more fertile than the others. Some are juvenile, maybe, right? Right. So the number of females alone won't help. We also need this, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So these two we can't right now eliminate. Let's keep them. Okay.
Why can't we put both?
Combine them together, right?
Combine them together in operational sex ratio or something.
Number of fertile females.
Okay, fine, we can do it.
But then age structure would also have a tie-in with ability to adapt.
Combine them.
Wouldn't for say for these or something like that, the age structure and number of females are not necessarily the same. Like number of females is only one who gives birth in the colony. But
okay, shall we go on to the next ones now? How about what about resources, competitive abilities, ability to adapt?
Competitive ability and ability to adapt can be combined into one.
Okay. Does everyone agree with this? Does anyone have an objection to that?
Create like a survival rate.
Does anyone have an objection to that? These two being combined?
No.
So competitive abilities does not restrict itself just to adapting to changing environments, right? It could be competition within males for mating with a particular female.
But that would also
let me ask you one question. How do all of these affect something that changes population size? So none of these are processes that affect the population change. What is the process that actually affects population
mating
change?
success?
It's actually number of births or deaths, right?
Yeah.
Number of births or deaths are the one that actually changes population size. But
Total reproductive fitness of the species.
Sorry?
Total reproductive fitness of the species,
species reproduce or individuals reproduce?
The population.
Who reproduces species or individuals?
Individuals would reproduce, but would on a population level, we would.
So you should not say fitness of species in general. Always say fitness of individuals. Okay. So all these three basically affect either birth or death. Do you agree with me?
Yes, sir.
So as long as we can capture birth and death rates in some way, these two can all can either go into birth rate or death rate. Do you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in fact, resources and competitive abilities, is there a relationship between them?
Limited resources, competition will increase.
Right. So limited resources will mean, irrespective of their abilities, the competitive coefficient will increase. Competition will increase whenever there are less resources, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. Of course, they can adapt a bit to improve their own ability to compete. Okay. But these three are basically strongly interlinked with each other. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So one can say there is some level of given a level of resource that affects birth and death, right? And how much it affects will depend on their effective, competitive, and adaptability. These abilities. Okay.
So can we combine climatic variability
with what?
With resources and ability to adapt.
With resources, climatic variability depends on whether the climatic variabilities affect resources, and if so, in what way. Of course, there are unknown stochastic factors here. We don't know about anything about it anyway. Okay. And then the second one is climatic. So it really depends on what are we assuming about how it affects the processes that affect the birth and death. At the end of the day, just because there is climatic variability doesn't mean the population need to change, right? It might lead to maybe extreme climatic event that leads to death. Then, of course, death rates will increase. It might lead to a scenario where it will lead to more resources. An extreme rainfall event.
Climatic.
basically, if you assume that what is the path by which it affects these two, that will determine how we actually incorporate climatic variables. It can directly affect death by climate killing the individuals. It can affect individuals by altering the resources, right?
So these are all external factors, right? Can it be put just under as external factors?
True. So this is an external factor. So this is, one can say that, see, resource is also an external factor to individuals, right? And one can say there are two types of external factors, right? Something like resource is an external factor because the survival and reproduction depends on resources. Okay, reproduction depends on resources, right? In particular, the other type of external factors are lightning that kills an individual. I mean, hypothetical, or an indirect effect which sort of affects. Those usually affect the death, not necessarily the births. See, birth happens only because of, at the end of the day, because of resources and mate availability, right? So so in some sense there are two sort of factors that one must sort of decouple. Okay, so
climatic factors can lead to new adaptations also, right?
Yes, it can. Therefore, again, this comes into this bracket, all the three brackets put together, which in turn affects the competitive abilities, right?
So can't we group the number of females and the age structure also into resources?
Or no? Oh, okay. How so? I mean, you don't. An individual doesn't consume resources to. Or are you saying that
in turn affects
also
birth and death rates? So the availability of females is also a resource.
Yeah, in that way, or the other way around. Availability of mates for the females. If you are thinking of females as the that you want to consider, yes, even that can also be combined into resources. Yes, that's a good point. So one can actually even think of access to mates as resources, and therefore combined. And climatic and unknown factors can affect the resources, or directly affect the birth and death factors, right? So if we are interested in reducing the number of factors we want to write into a mathematical model, what would be the minimum that we need to consider?
Birth rate, death rate, and migration would be.
So we do need this. We do need this.
And migration.
Right? We can't. You are saying migration is needed. Okay.
Isn't migration essentially birth death if we're considering one population?
There is a difference in the way it affects the population, and maybe we can take a look at that. Why one cannot just absorb the migration into these two. There is a small subtle difference in the way it happens. Okay, we will discuss that. Okay, but now all of you seem to agree that, at least there is a proposal that these two can be ignored because they will eventually affect these two, and a lot of others basically are affecting resources, broadly called as resources. Those can be food or mate or other factors that affect survival and birth and death. Okay, and that can also be combined under this. And then we also discussed how climatic variability also either affects resources, therefore has an indirect effect, or directly can cause these effects, right? Okay, so if we now look at all the things that I have now marked, okay, in no consistent fashion, sorry. We need to keep birth and death, obviously. We do need to keep the migration part. We can't ignore the migration part. And we need resources. These are the four things we need. Does it effectively cover everything else?
Sir, if we are combining the number of females with resources, I think competitive ability should be taken separately.
Okay. Okay, fine. We will think about that. Yes, we'll see how that affects our thinking.
Can you explain again why we are putting the females into resources?
Because we're not putting females into resources technically. So I think the idea here is that access to mates is also a resource. Okay. So I mean, I think I think maybe I understood what, I don't know who said this. I understand the point of thinking of mates as resources, but I think you're also right that you cannot really ignore the
I think number of females is a part of the population.
You
So
cannot really ignore to actually compute the next number. To get the next number, the next population size, you cannot really ignore this part. So maybe I think I should maybe not. We can combine the two. I think we should not maybe merge into resources. Okay. I think that's a good point.
I have a
All of these
question.
would give rise only to numbers in terms of birth, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I have
So
a
the
question.
reason I said that we could group them under resource is the following, as you rightly put. The access to even find a reproducing partner is a resource, because most often most males don't even find a partner to reproduce, right?
right, but
then
those
it can be
partners are
thought
the
of
part of
as
the
a resource.
population, right? So
Sorry?
Those partners are the part of the population. It's not as if only the males are counting for the population.
So
you can't really merge them in resources, because then resources are not the part of the population. We want to see how
It's going to
population
give
change
rise in
over
terms
time.
of birth or death.
What?
Again, all of this will only give, the numbers that you can see ultimately are only going to be birth or death, because these are populations across time.
Right, but when you assume that the number of operative females, those who are accessible for mating, are the part of resources, then you also negate the fact that females are the part of the population.
So I think let me try to resolve the confusion that people have here. There are two different things we need to keep in mind. Okay. So it's time up now, but so I will just take only a few more minutes. I won't take too much time. Okay. So the thing is, let's say, so what do we really want to know in the end, right? A large population has a number of males and number of females. Okay. So now you want to know, this is a time t, which is now. Let's say now you want to make some projection for after some time. After some time tau, what will be the new population size? Let's say there are n individuals now. What will be the new number is the question, right? That's the main question we are interested in. So the question is now, how can we simplify? How much can I simplify while still getting some reasonable answers? The basic question we are trying to address. Okay. To make the projection, we do need to know n. Is that right? We can't, and n consists of number of males plus number of females, right? Okay. So one strategy one can adopt is that, for a large number of species, the sex ratio is constant. So I'm going to look at only females. Okay. So I'm going to look at only females. And I'm going to look at what will be the new number of females at the next time step. With this focus, we cannot really get rid of, number of females. So if you go back to the previous slide now, if that is the question and focus, I cannot get rid of this part. However, if the question is more general, here I made an assumption that there are, there will always be a fixed, a corresponding proportion of males available. Therefore, the mating limitation will not be such a big issue, right? Under this assumption, mates are not a resource constraint anymore. But the moment mates become a resource constraint, in that context, what that person was saying is correct. Then one can think of mates broadly also as resources, because having less number of males is has the same effect of less number of matings and therefore less number of births, as having less number of food to eat, which will also lead to lesser survival and lesser number of births in the next generation. So in that context, mates are also considered as resources. So that's a sort of distinction we need to make. Mates as resources, and to know the actual number of males and females to compute the next generation of number of male and female. Okay, that's where I will stop now because it's already 1:05. Okay, we have had good discussion. So we'll start try to build models starting from next class. Okay, so let me unshare this window and tell you that the coming Friday I'm busy with a workshop and also next Wednesday. So so I will not be teaching on coming Friday and coming next Wednesday. So, but the TAs will be conducting this math refresher tutorials. Okay, so please attend. So for all of you who need math refresher, please attend those sessions. So the link for that, whether we are going to use the same Zoom link or we're going to use something different, we will tell you, because there's another workshop that also requires a Zoom, but we have only one subscribed license. So we will send you more information on that by email. Okay, so please do attend the Fridays and Wednesday sessions next week to refresh your math and programming. So I will be back teaching the following Friday, which is I think March 5th. Is that right?
Also, sir, when
Yes,
can we expect the poll for the class timing?
Oh, that I will do today itself.
Okay, fine.
Any other questions before we close the class today?
The recording for today's lecture will be posted on Canvas.
I didn't hear clearly, sorry.
The recording for today's lecture would be posted on Canvas?
Yes, not Canvas. We will send you the link.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we'll send you the link via Canvas, maybe, but we will certainly inform you where it is posted.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, great. So we'll stop today, and I'll get back. I'll be in touch with you over emails for the rescheduling of the class. Thank you.